everybody, it's Javad Shadzi, and it's sometime in April. We're during the coronavirus quarantines, all the days kind of run together. I've been home a lot lately, as likely you all have been as well, and I've been building some speakers and still working, obviously, but organizing my speaker building workshop. And I've had a lot of requests, and people ask, hey, can you do a video on your workshop and all your tools and how you're set up and everything. And so something I've been wanting to do for a while. And I guess the workshop is always evolving. And so I'm always like, well, let me do this one thing or tweak this one thing. And so I finally realized, I'm never going to be done tweaking it. And now is as good a time as any, since I'm home a lot. And you guys are home a lot, so you're probably sitting around watching, looking for things to watch. And so I figured this was a good time to do that. It's been about a month since Jeff died, and that's been really hard. But hopefully you guys have been following my Requiem project, which is dedicated to Jeff, and an attempt to honor him and to use the skills that he taught me, and also honor him with the quality and details of a speaker project. So hopefully you've been able to check that out on the project pad. If not, please check it out. I've spent some time pouring my heart out in that thread, and I'd appreciate if you guys engage with that. I mean, it would mean a lot to me. And so I actually just finished those speakers yesterday. I spent a few days working on the crossover, the span of a few days, probably have a couple hours into designing that and tuning that crossover. But I've been doing some critical listening to them for the last few days, and they sound great. So I'm basically considering that project finished. So I had a chance to clean the workshop. So I spent about an hour just, vacuuming and tidying up. This is something that I would do after every project I finish. Maybe you guys have seen some of my posts in the project pad about just some of my workshop philosophies and etiquette. But you might think this workshop looks really clean, and it is. Could probably be even cleaner and better organized, but it probably wouldn't benefit my workflow or productivity to clean it even more. However, this is how I clean and organize it after every project I finish. So I kind of have a rule or deal with myself that I don't get to start the next project until I clean and organize the shop. Otherwise, it just gets worse and worse and worse. It piles up and builds up. So this workshop has one of the most valuable tools I think you can own: space. And you'll notice lots of clear, open worktops. So table saws actually come like this when they're new, but you can actually keep it this way. So yeah, a lot of people think like this is a storage area, but this is not. This is a terrible place to store things. So I would much rather build storage in or get rid of crap I don't need than waste this space. And this is a workbench that is clear and open as can be. I'll probably do something with these things in the future. These bins, however, these bins I'm constantly using. So these are all different kind of ring terminals and connectors I use in crossovers when I'm building the crossover circuit board. So pretty much everything I could ever want. These are the cool little 1/4-inch terminal plates I use. These are all the ring terminals I use for various binding posts. 1/4-inch, 14 to 16 gauge, 1/4-inch, 18 to 20 gauge. These are they're about 0.185 inch or whatever they are. I even have the little stuff for the tweeter terminals. So I've got all that, and I'm just constantly using this. This is a bin with screws, so I'm constantly accessing this. These are all various different types of Phillips head screws that I use for speaker building and attaching drivers. And here's another bin with binding posts. I have nylock nuts for all the various binding posts and different spade connectors if I need them. Every once in a while I'll use a switch, little terminal strips. So these are things I access all the time, so I generally don't put them too far out of reach. But yeah, so a clean workshop is worth so much when your most valuable asset is your time. So it looks like I've spent a lot of money on this shop, and there's definitely some money into this shop. I'm fortunate enough to be able to afford a shop like this. However, a much more valuable, rare commodity to me is time. And so if I can spend $200 on a tool that saves me time, then it's totally worth it, because that means I can build more speakers, I can get more done, and I can't really buy more time. I can't get more time. If an operation takes me 20 minutes and a tool could help me execute it in 5 with greater precision and repeatability, then $200 is totally worth it, especially for the number and type of speakers I build. I also want to reiterate that almost everything in this shop, I haven't shelled out cash for. So I actually use a lot of rewards type points to get gift cards to buy tools. And this is something you guys may want to look into. So I specifically look for credit cards that give me points that I can use to redeem gift cards at Home Depot or Lowe's or Amazon. And at my company 034 Motorsport, we ship about 20,000 packages a year, and many of those are with FedEx. So FedEx has this awesome points program as well, and I can buy Lowe's and Home Depot gift cards through that program. So, some stuff I have paid for. A lot of stuff in here I've bought used, and many of the things in here I've bought with gift cards. So I don't know what, I honestly haven't kept track of how much money is in the shop, but I'm not one to want to just go out and blow money and pay retail on things just because I want it. So I usually always have kind of a tool I'm pining for and planning for, and I'll pick up a lot of stuff that way. And of course, anything that I'm not using, I just sell. I sell on Facebook Marketplace. I also buy a lot of tools on Facebook Marketplace. So if there's a tool or something in this shop that's just taking up space and I'm not using it, I sell it. And I use that money to buy something that I do want and need. So I'm just going to kind of go down the list. This is not scripted. I'm just totally winging this. This is like you just kind of showed up at my house and said, hey, show me your wood shop. So I did kind of jot down a little list of topics that I'm going to review. So let's start with saws. We can talk about the various saws I have in here. I really don't feel like there's anything I'm missing in here other than, at some point if I wanted to, I could put a CNC router in here and kind of replace a few tools. I've avoided doing any kind of CNC type speaker building just for my one-off projects up till now, because I love coming up with concepts. I love building them in my head, and I love just bringing that to life out of my mind and not having to spend the time CADing things up. And when you're machining something, you are limited to a degree the kind of shapes and things you can build. So when I build freeform by hand, I can fudge things and I can create organic shapes that I might not necessarily, some things are much easier to do and some things aren't. And my day job is all machining and CAD and stuff. So for me to do something like this out of my head has been really rewarding. So let's start with the main saw in here. This is the Jet table saw. And let's see. So this is the JPS 10TS. This is a 110 volt, 1 3/4 horsepower Jet table saw. I opted for the extension table so I can move the fence out to about 53 inches if I need to. I will sometimes make cuts that wide, but generally I don't. But it is really nice to have that option. And this does also work as, double as a good work surface. So I will perform work on here. I'll temporarily store things on here if I need to get it out of the way, things like that. It has an amazing fence. This is a Bessemer style fence, extremely accurate. And I've fully set up the saw so everything's parallel and square. A must-have is this Wixie digital readout, or a DRO. And so with this DRO, if I make a cut at 13.615 inches and I make another cut, I can come right back to 615 inches or whatever it was just now. So this makes repeatable cuts trivial, and this gauge is extremely accurate. So if you set it, you move it, and you come back, you will get identical cuts every time. Within any kind of tolerance that you would ever need for woodworking. I'm a DIY guy. I really recommend this saw blade. You can't really see, but this is the Diablo 80 tooth. This blade's about a year old. Great blades. They cut. The finished cut surface is like glass. Really don't even need to sand it in some cases if you get a really clean, accurate cut. But I really recommend that blade. I think they're about $50-$60 at Home Depot or on Amazon. So I'm a big fan of table saws. I know there's some debates out there, and people say like track saws are better than table saws, or you don't need a table saw. For me, that's not. I don't agree with that. I love a table saw. I've been using a table saw my whole life. It is literally the most used tool in the shop. And I love the accuracy, the repeatability, the precision of the cuts. To me, it's the best tool. The only time it becomes an issue is when you're breaking down a big sheet of plywood, and that's where a circular saw, or my next saw that I want to show you, is this panel saw. So I actually picked this up used from a sign shop that was selling it. This is a Milwaukee panel saw. So you put your sheet in here, it'll accommodate up to a 4-foot sheet, and then you just make the cut. And you can slide the sheet back and forth, make your mark. I have this set up so it's perfectly square, again, within any tolerance you would ever need. It will create some tear out, because there's really no good way to do a kind of a way to support the grain on when the tooth exits the cut. So it will splinter a little bit, but nothing like you see at those saws at Home Depot that are really dull. I mean, those things just freaking trash the cut, So this does do clean cuts. I have a good high tooth count blade in there. I think it's like around an 8.25-inch blade that this saw uses. I have dust collection here rigged up, so works well. And this is how the dust collection works. So as you can see, the dust collection kicks on with any saw in the shop. So that really helps cut down on a lot of the dust that gets in the air, and it really helps with the dust that goes on the ground. This saw, you still get a little bit of dust on the ground, but nothing like you would without it. All right, let's see what next. All right, so I think every good shop needs a miter saw. So this is pretty much a top-of-the-line Dewalt unit. It's a 12-inch blade. Let's see if you can see there. I had a Ryobi saw that I picked up a few years ago, and that was a good saw. It worked well. It was only like $230. And I used that for a few years, but I got to a point, the problem with that one was it could do angled compound cuts only in one direction. And so that's what, this can go down to a full 45 degrees in both directions. So it can also come down this way as well. And that does give you extra flexibility when you're making some miter cuts. It's not something I use all the time, but I also love the light on this. And so this has, let's see if I can show you guys. So a lot of these saws have like lasers and stuff, and the lasers have to be aligned properly because the laser is just kind of arbitrarily hitting the wood somewhere, and so you have to line that point up with the saw blade. But this is really cool technology. So there's a light in here. There's a light on each side of the blade. I don't know if you can see it. And so what happens is that casts a shadow down here. See that? And so this shadow is always where the blade is. It's self locating, and so you can see that the shadow is from the blade itself, right? So it doesn't need to be adjusted. There's no adjustments. So when you turn on the saw, you can see that the shadow becomes blurred into a solid line, and wherever that shadow is where the blade is going to cut. So I really like that, and that was one of the things that really attracted me to this saw. This saw can cut up to 14-inch wide, which is a nice wide. You can actually cut panels down in this. Again, this tool I have perfectly square. I spent some time adjusting it when I got it, and then I have this saw stand, which allows me to cut really wide boards. So I can pretty much cut a 10-15 foot long board easily with this saw. The other thing I like about this saw, and you can see here, there's a generous clearance there. So that means if I have a board standing up, I can cut it like that. And there's a technique that I use where I'll cut, say, like a 22-degree angle on each side of the board, and I'll lean it in here like this. And if I cut miters in on that board, then I can build like a really cool, 6-sided enclosure. And you've probably seen me use that technique like on the Ceramicos enclosure and other builds I've done as well. The Rally Sports, I think I used it on the Pretty Persuasions as well. And so when you have a generous clearance there, it allows you to build taller, wider enclosures. It's a really simple technique that works great. So again, this is a Dewalt 12-inch. Let's see. So this is the DVVS 780. This retails for about $600, and again, this is one of the tools I bought with a gift card. So I spent $0 of my own money. This is the Rossi 5000 dust hood. This works great. I really like it. It accommodates, all the different directions the saw can move. And when the dust collection kicks on, you can see down in there. Yeah, this is just, but it actually, the dust will suck into this opening. You can see it. So it does a really good job of containing dust. I rarely have to vacuum underneath. And it accommodates all the different kind of movements the saw makes. So I really recommend that. You can build something or try to make that work, but this is a great solution. This is my bandsaw. I think every shop needs a bandsaw. I don't really need a huge, crazy, complicated one. So I picked up this Porter Cable 14-inch unit. And so this will take, they rate it for up to a 1/2-inch wide blade, but I actually have a 3/4 inch. This blade is, I use it for resawing. And so because this blade is so wide, it just cuts really straight. And I've actually had it in here for 6 months, and it's been working for a lot of the type of cuts I end up making. But it literally takes like, you know, a few, less than a minute to change out the blade. But this is a nice saw. It's 110 volts. It's plenty powerful for the things I do. If you're resawing, it definitely will get bogged down. You just have to go slower. I just didn't really want to get into a lot of 220 volts in this shop, and I really haven't needed them. So there is a way to extend the throat on this so you can resaw more. I think you can. So this is currently 6 inches, and I think you can double that to like 12 inches. So what happens is you put a big steel spacer block under here where this neck connects to the base, and so this whole top part moves up. You need longer blades as a result, but it does allow you to cut much wider boards if you want to resaw. Again, that's something I haven't needed. I've just resawn like up to 6 inch wide and then just glued them together when I've needed it. But I think if you're breaking down a lot of lumber, raw wood, then it's a good idea. This is a great saw. I think it was around $400. Again, I used a gift card to buy it. The dust collection's okay on it. You know, it probably catches half the dust that comes off it. Yeah, it's great. For speaker building, it's perfect. This is a Craig fence. This is a really precise unit. Oh, there's some sawdust in there. And so it comes with this fence and this fence guide. You know, the one thing that when you set up a fence on a bandsaw like this, the blade doesn't just cut straight. So if the fence is square to the blade, what happens is thinner blades will walk. So you can actually angle this fence. And when you get the angle right, then it'll make straight cuts. So you have to get crooked to be straight. It's kind of a interesting concept, but that's a nice saw. I like it. I really don't recommend getting anything smaller than this unless you're like building fishing lures. You know, it's just really small, like tiny little things. But if you want to resaw, you know, like this is the Helios Common Man project where I broke down all this firewood. You're gonna need something at least like this. These are some of the pieces that I have left over. And here's some more. So with this saw, I was actually able to resaw this whole piece. So there's some smaller ones on the market. You know, again, I would consider those more like hobby saws. I wouldn't recommend getting anything smaller than this. Let's see, what other saws do I have? So I'm a Makita Lxt guy. Lxt is the Makita Cordless Battery system. So this is a cordless circular saw. This is great if I've got a pallet outside I want to break down real quick, or just a cut I need to make and I want to haul out a extension cord. It actually cuts really straight, and it's a pretty powerful little unit, so it works good. I'll just show you everything up here. This is one of my favorite tools. This is a Makita Lxt Biscuit joiner. I use this on almost every project, you may have noticed. This is a Makita, what are these called? Forget the name of them. Let's see if it says on here. Anyways, this vibrates back and forth, and so you can make really cool cuts. I use this on the enthrall speaker. If you look back on that build, this is great if you want to just go in and make a cut. You know, you just want to kind of go in like this, and you can like if you have a dowel going in and you want to just knock it off, you could use a handsaw obviously, but something like this would work. Or a lot of construction guys use these to cut openings in drywall or a plywood panel or something for an electrical outlet, something like that. This is a Makita Lxt. It's basically a little sawzall. Again, works great for a quick cut. I actually use this a lot for trimming trees and stuff on our in our yard and our property. So I actually don't use it a ton in the shop. Works good. Again, it's nice to have. Also good for home defense, you know. This is a tool I used to use a ton when I was doing car audio back in the 90s. And this was the gold standard, the Bosch Jig Saw. This tool is actually Well, this particular one, I think I bought in '06. So it's going on 15 years old. Works as good as the day I bought it. This is a cord one. I really want to get a cordless one. I've been eyeing a Makita Lxt unit. So that might be a future gift card purchase. It's about $250 for the one I want. Here's a Bosch angle grinder. And this has the grinding disc that I used in the Sorels to create that contoured, textured sides and back. This is a really nice tool. It's actually pretty cheap too. It's like $60. This is a Porter cable hand plane. I don't use this a lot for speaker building, but when you need this tool, it's really nice to have. And basically, you can set the depth here, and there's a blade that spins here, and so you can just, like, if you wanted to just take the edge off a 2x4, you could just do a couple passes on this and square it up. It works, you know, again, I think that in construction it gets used for like, you know, truing up door jambs and clearancing door jambs and stuff like that. I don't consider it a precision tool, but you can use it in a precise way if you want. And here's a Porter cable belt sander. I think this is one of the best belt sanders on the market. So if you're going to get one, I recommend the Porter cable unit. This was the best belt sander when I was growing up, like in the 80s and 90s. This was the gold standard, and I think it still is. It's very powerful. If you're not careful, it'll just pick you up and drag you across the workpiece. So let's put some of that back. These are just, you know, kind of some of the hand tools and saws that I have in the shop, and I just kind of pile them up here as needed. I may come up with a better storage system for those in the future. So, okay. So let's see. I think that's about it for power saws in the shop. Let's see what's next. So planer joiner sander. Okay. So here's my joiner. I don't know if you know what a joiner is, but this is a Q-Tech, and you can see this isn't a true helical cutter, but instead of having blades that go across, this has these little inserts. So the advantage is if you damage one of these, say you hit a nail or something, you're only going to take out one unit, and you can actually spin these and rotate them, and you get a new cutting surface. This particular unit is 10 inches wide, which is really nice. Most joiners are less than that. And it has some cool features like, you know, the problem with this one is it's short. So if you want to join like a 10-foot long board, I really don't think this is the best unit for that. And that's where I would use something like this. So this is a joiner sled that I made, and I did a post on this on the project pad recently, I think a couple weeks ago. So for something like this, let's say you have a board like this, and this edge is not clean, right? So let's say this edge, right? And so you need to create a straight edge. So you simply clamp the board down in this fixture securely. So now we have a perfectly straight edge here in this plywood, and we just simply put this in the table saw and we run this along the fence, and then we get a perfectly parallel cut on this side. So now we have one parallel cut. We can make a second parallel cut, and then we could use something like a sled, a crosscut sled, and then we could make our other cuts. Or we could take this over to the 12-inch radial circular saw and cut square cuts that are square to these parallel cuts. Since we made these in the table saw, we know they're perfectly square, so we simply need to make a perpendicular cut. So you could square up a board like this. The hard thing is always getting the first straight edge. You need one straight edge. and you can get that with this. Now normally you could use a planer. This piece is short enough that it would work well in that particular joiner. Not a planer, but a joiner. But what I like using that joiner for is, for example, for pieces like this. And so this piece actually started like that, and after I ran it across the joiner, you know, now this was resawn, but I could create a perfectly smooth surface on this board. Let's see. So these I first resawed them in the bandsaw, and then I ran them through that joiner. So that's what I mostly use that joiner for. If I need straight edges on a board, I'll use my joiner jig like this. You know, everyone likes to do things a little differently, so just put this back real quick. All right, so that's the joiner. Let's see, I have a planer. So I actually did a review on this planer on the project pad about a year ago. If you search for like Dewalt planer, I'm sure it'll come up. This is the Dewalt Dw 734, I believe. They make two planers. This is the cheaper version. I think this retails for around $400. Again, gift card purchase. So from Home Depot. They make a DW 735 as well. The 735 has 2 speeds. Honestly, you really never need 2 speeds. And it has a bigger chip suction pump in it. And I have dust collection. I don't need that. This has 3 sharp blades in it. They're high-speed steel. You can actually buy carbide blades to replace it. I honestly have been using the crap out of this thing. And as long as you don't hit nails and staples and anything metal with it, the blades will last a really long time. And when they wear out, you flip them around. And it's like $50-$60 for a whole new brand new set of blades, which you can flip once again. So people get kind of worked up about helical cutter heads. You know, if you have like a production job shop or something, it's probably a good idea. If you're a home hobbyist, DIY guy like I am, I think you can really get away with something like this. There are other planers on the market. Harbor Freight makes one. I really don't recommend that. But Wen and Porter Cable, Craftsman has one. Makita has one. There's plenty in the $300 range if you want to save some money. But I think it's worth splurging on the Dewalt. It has a couple extra features that I talk about in my review that are worthwhile. And this is another one of my favorite tools. This is my Jet 1632 sander. So this is a drum sander, and it kind of performs a similar function to a planer, but it has this big drum that spins. So I currently have this loaded with 120 grit, which I find is good for general sanding use. If I don't want to take too much off, which I never really need to, then this works great. It has amazing dust collection. Once I hook my dust hose up to this, nothing comes out. And it has variable speeds, so you can see. Has a big, powerful 1.5 horsepower motor. And then you can see here it's adjustable height. So it will accommodate up to a 3-inch thick piece. And I don't think I've ever used it down below 1/2 inch or so. It's very adjustable. You can, change the parallelism and squareness. So this is open on one side. I don't know if you can see that there. So the 1632 means that the drum is 16 inches wide. But if you have a 32-inch wide panel, you can run it through once. You flip it, you run it through the other side, and technically you sand the whole board. And I have used it like that, and it works pretty well for that. But for speaker building, generally you don't have panels that need sanding or dimensioning like this that are bigger than 16 inches. They make a 24-inch one as well. But this is perfect. This was not a cheap tool. I think it was about $1,200-$1,300, but I got it on Black Friday, so it was 10% off. And I was doing my Straphi project, which frankly I couldn't do without this because I was stacking the layers and I couldn't afford to have any height differences between the pieces that joined. I had to have perfectly flat layers. And so this allowed me to run every layer through the sander on both sides until they were flat. And then I literally use it in every project since. So it's money well spent. I use it to build cutting boards. I do clocks and things as gifts for friends. And so I really recommend that if you have room for it, if you can afford it. It is one of my most used tools. And honestly, if you only have that, you could probably not need a joint like a planer. Technically, they're not the same tool. But if you do want to dimension something, smooth something, flatten something out, that will do it. You'll have to run more passes. But the other benefit of the drum sander is it doesn't tear out the grain. So what you see a lot with joiners, and helical cutters are way better at this because they come in at an angle to the grain. But the straight knife planers, they hit the grain at a 90-degree angle. And so if you have any grain, figure, any knots, figure is when the grain kind of does this through the wood. And then when the board is cut, it cuts through that grain. So you have these like little troughs of grain left in the wood, and the planer blade will just grab that and rip those out. So the sander doesn't do that. The sander just sands away the wood. So if I'm dimensioning something with the planer, I'll take it down to about a 16th inch or 32nd inch of where I want it, and I'll finish it off in the sander. It's a great way to go. Okay, let's see. I think it's time for a little refreshment. Man, we're almost 40 minutes in. All right. So I know everyone kind of jokes about having a driver stash, and this is one of mine. I also have some stuff in another garage. I got stuff in my list. We all have a problem. But I have this cabinet in the shop just to store some things that I want to keep clean. I have various drivers, boxes of different drivers. I try to label the boxes of what's in here. So inside here, there's some Peerless DX25B tweeters. There's some Tang Bang passive radiators. There's some Best in tweeters. So you get the idea. In here, I have two VIFA P17W0 woofers, which were like state of the art in the 90s. I've got some SB Acoustics goodies in here. These are some Audible Physics 6.5 inch woofers that I bought when MCM was shutting down. I got a smoking deal on these. This is a box full of 5 inch and 4 inch. I've got some Denim Ultra Touch in here. And this stuff comes, my wife gets these boxes of meals where the meal is prepped and you cook it. It comes with this like recycled cotton. I mean, it's freaking perfect. So I use this in mid-range enclosures and things like that. I keep that stuff. Plastic pour tubes. I don't really use these anymore. Honestly, if somebody wants them, send me a PM and I'll send them to you for free. I don't really use a lot of that kind of stuff anymore. I prefer to build my own. So that's my driver stash in the shop. This is kind of one spot where I can open up in the future when I want to, and I can put another tool there if I want. So there's no reason that this stuff has to be in the shop, and it might not be for very long. So let's talk about routers. I don't know if you guys know me. I love routers. They're one of my favorite tools, and I use them a lot in my projects because routers allow you to create a lot of amazing shapes and perform a lot of awesome cut operations that aren't very easy to do any other way. So I'm mostly a Bosch router guy, so here I'll show you. So these are a selection of the routers I have. And I kind of keep them all in here. Now, you might be wondering, like, why does somebody need, like 10 routers? Well, I don't, but again, like I was telling you, time is one of my most valuable, commodities. So when you have this many routers, you can do different setups and not have to constantly be changing out bits. So I can set up a particular roundover or this spiral upcut double bearing flush cutter, and I can do one setup with that, and I don't have to ever touch it. So I can set that bit in the router to cut perfectly every time. If I have to reset that up every time I make a cut, it does take a lot of time, and frankly, that kind of monotonous work makes me not want to build speakers. So I have been picking these up when I can, again with gift cards. eBay, you can find these Bosch routers rebuilt or like reconditioned. Most of these are those. I've had no problem with any of them. Honestly, they come in a box like a brand new one. Sometimes, you know, it could be like a handle was broken or a cord was changed, but I haven't had any issues with any of them. And then I have picked up some really, when I've seen good deals on like Amazon Marketplace, I have an alert that will tell me, hey, someone just listed a router, a Bosch router. And I've picked up several of these 1617s for like under $100 used, and like most people, they'll buy one of these and they'll use it like once. They'll buy it for a project or something, and then they won't use it anymore. So I haven't spent crazy money on these, but it is really nice to have them. And again, time is the most valuable thing. For all my circle cuts, I use this cordless Makita, which is really nice. When you're doing circle cuts, the cord just keeps spinning and getting tangled, and it's always in the way. And so this is a Makita Lxt. This thing's surprisingly powerful, and with like a 3 or 4 amp battery on it, you can cut all day long, and then you can just, if you have 2 batteries, you just charge one while the other one's being used. And I have 2 of these. One of them I have set up. Currently, it's got a little spiral upcut flush bit on it with double bearings. Then I also have one of these Bosch Colt. This is a small 1/4 inch, but I always have this set up with a 1/4 inch roundover in it. So if you've seen on my braces and stuff, I'm always doing little roundovers on those. So this is always set up for that. It does have a cord, but it's fine because I'm not doing circle cuts. And these are pretty cheap. I think I picked this up for under $100. And so I may end up with a few more of these just to have, you know, different setups as well. Then I picked up this monster last year. I think I posted on the pad about it. This is the Bosch 1615 EVS, and this is like a 3 horsepower motor. It's just a big burly router. It works good for big cuts, big operations, and I don't know. I just had to have it because it's a really cool tool. So yeah, I think it's like over 3 horsepower for this one. So when you turn that on, it's like, and it's you know you're using it. I also have a lot of router bits, so good selection here. I send these out to get sharpened, so these just came back. For some of the bits that I really like, I'll buy 2. So these are the bevel undercut bit that I had made, and so I have several of these. And so when one gets kind of dull, I'll send it out, and then I'll put the other into use if I need it. I usually send bits out for sharpening a couple times a year, and it does make a huge difference. These bits do need sharpening. So I have more router bits and implements in here. You know, some of these 1/4 inch upcut and downcut, different kind of circle jig hardware, and these are the double spiral upcut bits that I love. I have several of those. So I put those in here. And I also have in here another drawer of router stuff. So these are, this is a set of angle bits. These are Yonico brand. I've had really good luck with Yonico for as far as price and quality. It's really good. And then just, you know, keep my Forstner bits in here and other various router bits and tools in here. So, and then I also have this router table. So this is a Bosch router table. I added some dust control measures. I think this one's designed for like kind of be used as a like on a work site or something. But they make another one that's more of like panel based and it's closed. So that's nice. But I added these panels and it helps with the dust control a lot. I don't currently have this set up for anything, but there is another router in there. And I have dust control set up here, which works great. This fence can be moved and set up. And this comes out, so if you want to make a change. And then I can also, there's an Allen key that goes in here and I can change and adjust the height of the router in the table if I want to make adjustments there. All right, so that's pretty much routers. If you guys have any questions about anything you're seeing in this video, just ask and I'll be happy to answer. Let's see. All right, let's talk about drills. So these are mostly the drills I use. These are Makita. They're not LXT, but these are actually no longer made, but you can still buy them. So I think I have about 5 or 6 of these. I have 4 on the shop right now, and I have 1 in my listening room as well. These are nice because I think they're real light and easy to use. They're great for installing drivers. They have a 3/4 inch chuck, so you can do a lot of things. They have 2 speeds and they have the clutch. So generally when I'm putting screws in for drivers, I'm like 4, 6, 8 on some of the bigger screws. And these batteries actually last a long time. And this is actually like an off-brand Power Extra battery. I picked up some of these on Amazon. They're a lot cheaper than the Makita ones, and I really can't tell the difference. So I think in that case I lucked out. And then I have one Makita Lxt drill. This has a 1/2 inch chuck. This is a much more powerful unit. I honestly don't use this very often because for speaker building, it's just rare when you need this much power and torque. But I will use it for other projects. And I always just keep it hanging right there. So these are the Makita Lxt batteries. So I 3D printed up these cool holders. These are all the Lxt batteries I have. This is a 3 amp. This is about as many as I need. I might pick up 1 or 2 more if I think I need. I usually pick these up with gift cards. But I really like this Lxt system. Pretty much anything that I could ever want in a cordless tool, Makita already makes. There are other good brands. I think the key is once you invest in a cordless tool line, you really want to kind of stick with one because you just don't want chargers everywhere. These are the Makita Lxt Chargers I have here, and these are the chargers for my drills. This is all the chargers I ever want in my shop. I don't want to have 5 or 6 different battery chargers taking up room and complicating things. So, all right, let's talk vacuums. So I mentioned my dust control system earlier. I picked up a Jet dust system. I think this is like 1300 CFM. I am using this awesome iMac switch box. And so I have the vacuum powering off of this. This unit itself is plugged in. And then I have for tool power going to this power strip, and I have all the tools in the shop running off this. Now what that allows me to do is allows me to hook up every tool in my shop that I want up to that power strip. Now obviously I can't run multiple tools simultaneously, which isn't something I would do anyways, but that allows me to hook up everything simply with because I think what they want you to do is to buy like 20 different power switches, and I'm not doing that. So that power switch method has worked great for me, and that's what I've been using. And you can see some of the pipes I've run. So this is sort of my auxiliary, I just kind of stick it in there when I'm not using it. But that's my auxiliary 4-inch hose. So I will vacuum with that using these vacuums here. And so that goes up here. I have this cool little swivel on there, which works pretty good. And so that comes down and drops down into this. And so I have several of these air doors. So this one goes to the table saw. This one goes to that main top unit. And this is for the panel saw. So when I use this, I open that. And I shut the other one. So that, you know, when you focus all the vacuum on one door, then you get the best suction. And then I built this junction using PVC pipes. I think this is a 6-inch hose that runs kind of down the back of this side of the shop. I have this little door set up for the circular saw, which works great. And then I have a branch off for the bandsaw. I've got a branch off for the router table. And then I've got a branch off for this sander. So these little doors work great. There is a system you can get that is wired and that will open and shut different gates. I really haven't found the need to mess with that, and it's a lot more money. They're actually like, you're looking at almost $200 per tool to set that up. So this system works great. And then I basically organize the shop so that all the dust control tools are on one side of the shop like that. So I can do these big branches instead of running stuff all over the shop randomly. So just a little bit of planning there goes a long way. I also have this awesome dust unit. So this is made by Wen. I did some research. There is a jet one and there's other brands. I really love this one. It's the model 3410. It's on Amazon. I think it's $150 or so. It has a remote control. It has 3 speeds, and you can set a timer so it will shut off when you want it to. And then it has 2 filters. So it has this pleated filter here, which is more coarse. And then inside there's like a 0.5 micron filter. I think this is really a critical tool to have in every shop. So whenever I'm cutting, I always turn that on, and that keeps the air clean. And it also, you know, prevents dust from going. There's still dust going everywhere, but it prevents as much from going. And for the money, it just makes the shop a much more pleasant place to be. So especially if I'm gonna do any painting or finishing, I'll run that for a few hours, and it really clears out the air. And this is the remote for it right here. And so I can turn it off, I can turn it on, I can, you know, set the speed, and I can also set the time. So I think the jet one is almost double the price, and I don't think it's worth it. You can buy those filters and stuff from them as well. And then this was a particular splurge. I picked this up about 6 months ago. This is not cheap. These are about $1,300 new. Again, I did some conniving with gift cards to pick that up because it was painfully expensive. However, I gotta tell you, this thing is awesome. So it takes 2 LXT batteries. And so what I'll do is if I'm cutting or routering and I make a mess, let's say I want to go in and have dinner, I'll just put this on the ground, start it, and in about an hour it vacuums the whole shop. Like, honestly, you could eat off the floor. It works really well. It has this hopper, and there's a filter in here that and you can see there's some dust in there, and you can see it picks up big stuff. And there's a filter in here. The air that comes out of it is very clean, and I can't say enough good things about this thing. It's a monster. It's basically like 3 or 4 Roombas in one, and it just kind of just bounces around the shop until it's clean, and it gets everything. I don't know, it's awesome. So if you're sick of vacuuming and sweeping and stuff like that, again, time saver. I really recommend beg, borrowing, or stealing to get the Makita RoboVac. It's really a great unit. And again, I can't say enough good things about it. I used to do a lot of vacuuming in the shop, and now I just rely on that thing. So yeah, it wasn't cheap, but again, I figured out a way to get it. I actually saw one recently on Facebook Marketplace for 600 bucks. Someone was selling one. So you can find deals on them. They're still not cheap, but just think about, how much sweeping, sometimes I think woodworking should be called vacuuming. So just think about, literally the days every year you will save. If you have a hard time finding the time to get out in the shop, something like this can literally give you days back every year of actual woodworking and not vacuuming. So I don't sell these, or maybe I should. Okay. And then I want to talk up another tool here. This is also one of my most used tools in the shop, is this vacuum. So in our home, we have these Dyson, like we have a V11 and a V8. And so one day I was like, it'd be really nice to have one of those in the shop, but I knew my wife would kill me if I did. And so I just went on Amazon and I found one of these. This was about $100. It's cheap, it's crappy, but it works. It's just a Dyson knockoff. So I'm constantly using this. When I'm working, I'll just have this sitting next to me. And if I drill a hole and there's some sawdust, I'll just vacuum it up. So it makes it just real quick and easy to just spot clean around the shop. So here, this board you can see has dust all over it. It's like nice and clean now. So I really recommend picking up one of these if you want, again, help cleaning around the shop. It came with this brush attachment, and also this actually spins as it's going, and then there's this extension as well. So this one is made by DEIK, model ZB1516. There's a lot of crap like this on Amazon and eBay. They're trying to take advantage of the Dyson market share. So, but I don't think you need to get a real fancy one. You just need to suck up the dust. So again, can't recommend that enough for a vacuum as well. And I've got a shop vac around here. I actually have one of our old home vacuums that I store under there, but I used to use that more. It's a pain because you got to plug it in. But since I got that little thing, I haven't used that since. So I think that's a great thing to have. Let's see. Okay, let's talk about workbenches. So you can see I've got a lot of work surfaces. So I've got this table, which actually rolls around. I can lock the legs. This is my main workbench. This is mostly what I use when I'm speaker building. So I do assembly clamping on here. You've probably seen lots of pictures of this. And then these are workbenches that I built. So you might notice these all have the same legs. These legs are available on Amazon. And they're adjustable, so you can change the height by moving this bolt around. I think I paid like $50 a pair for these. So for all the workbenches in the shop, got like $200 or so into those. And then this tabletop is something I bought on Amazon. So it's just a particle board tabletop. It's very flat and true. And I just treat it with wipe-on poly every few months. I don't drill into it. I don't screw into it. There is some, you'll see some like just cuts and nicks here and there every once in a while. But I'm really not, I want a nice smooth surface to work on. I'm not really looking to have this like jaggedy screwed up surface. And a tabletop like this is like $200. So you don't really want to be blowing through those things any more than you need to. You could easily make your own by buying a sheet of particle board for like $30 and doubling it up. So 3/4 inch, make it 1.5 inches, glue them together. That would be probably a cheaper way to do it. But I picked this one up, and actually this one right here, when it shipped, this corner broke off. So I complained to Amazon and they gave me like $50 off. So I think I got it for under $150. These, however, are solid core doors. I got these at Home Depot. I think they're like 60 bucks each. They make awesome workbenches. So this entire workbench was $160. So $160 for each of these workbenches. I finished these in Rubio monocoat, just as an experiment. It's actually worked great. It's held up really well. Again, I don't screw into these. I don't thrash these worktops, but this is solid. So inside this door is MDF. So I mean, these things are freaking heavy, and they make a very, very solid worktop. Honestly, I haven't found a better value for a workbench. Again, you could probably build the legs out of 2x4s for cheaper. It takes more time, and I think this is a more professional result. So I've been really happy with my workbenches. And then I've got, so one of my friends was moving, and he was like, hey, I've got this whole like a crate and barrel bedroom set. Do you want it, or do you know anyone that has it? And I was just setting up my shop, and the light bulb kind of went off. So I picked up all these. This is some kind of nightstand, but I put wheels on them so they roll around. And I have these drawers filled up with different types of things. So these are all measuring type of tools that I have. Scale. This is a cool Wixie setup gauge. Anyways, and these also double as worktops. So I have these worktops all over the shop. I have a worktop here. This is a speaker project I'm working on. This is my design called the microfarads. So I'm actually doing a production run of these. But again, this is another drawer, more stuff in here, sandpaper type stuff. So these worktops also double as storage, which is awesome. And then I recently built this. So these are some storage cabinets that I picked up off of Amazon. I think these were about $100 each. They're good quality. Still don't have anything in most of these. This is a little filing cabinet I picked up. I think I have some wires in here. This rolls around, and this is some 1.25" particle board I picked up, and so I built a workbench out of this. Currently, I'm kind of storing all my sanders here, and by the way, these are my sanders. The 5-inch Bosch random orbital. This 6-inch, which I love. I would argue that this is kind of Festool quality for about half the price. This thing's a monster. In fact, if you have this, you don't really need a belt sander anymore. You put some 40 grit into that, and it will hog down through anything. And this is an older Dewalt I have. I like the Bosch. This Bosch runs much smoother than the Dewalt. They both work, but this is just easier on the hand. So, and a little tip. I buy Sorbothane sheets like this. So I make these little pads. So when I'm sanding, I put that under my hand, and it greatly reduces the vibrations. So, and then I put this little organizer on the end of this workbench, and it has all my 5 and 6-inch sanding and belt sander on the end here. So that works great. And then more worktop space. This is a little paint cabinet. So this is where all my paints and finish stains, materials. I've got some glues down here. This is a grain filler, spray paints that I use occasionally, spray finishes. I got some Odie's oil, some general finishes, Seal Clear, and Armor Seal, which is great stuff. Got a nice selection of Rubio monocoat here. Some Osmo products, which are awesome. And some more traditional Minwax. We've got stains. We've got some Duratex. Pretty much anything I could ever want. Danish oil. There. I have teak. Anyways, I'm blanking on the one I just used on the Helios. Got some shellac. Tongue. I've got some Watco tongue finish. Minwax wipe on poly, Minwax polyurethane, polyacrylic paints. Some of the Hercules bed liner that I used on the debacles. This is a really cool wax polish, hard wax polish. I've got some brie wax, which works well. So anyways, I like to give myself every option for finishes, and I also like to try everything so that I can, you guys ever ask me, you know, about what I use or whatever, and it helps me generate the kind of finishes and results that I like and want to. All right, what else? Clamps. Oh man, I kind of want to save clamps for the close to the end so you guys keep watching. So as you guys know, I love clamps. So let's just go through what I have. These are 4 foot or 48-inch long bar clamps. These are 3/4 inch pipe. These are, frickin' brand are those? It'll come to me. Oh, these are Irwin. I really like these Irwin ones, but there's plenty of options. Here we have 36 inch. I have 5 of those, and I have 4 of the 24 inch. So these bar clamps are what I would use for clamping boards edge to edge. The 48-inch long bar clamps I will use if I'm clamping the top or bottom of a speaker onto a really tall speaker. I want to apply a lot of torque to really make those boards meet up. And so that's why I made those 48-inch ones. These bar clamps, though, are a great option because you can buy that pipe for pretty cheap. And you can even swap them from pipe to pipe. So even if you just have a couple of those clamps and you have like 10 different pipes, you can set up different lengths and configurations easily. Again, I want to save time, so I have them pre-set up. And I picked up these really nice storage racks on Amazon. I think they're made by Rockler, possibly. But if you just search on Amazon, you'll find them. All right. And let's see, these are all the bar type clamps that I use regularly. So this is as many clamps as I actually think I need. I love buying clamps. I could probably buy a lot more than this if I wanted to, but I kind of have a deal with myself that I have enough clamps until I'm in the middle of a project and I run out of a certain kind of clamp I want. Then I'll give myself permission to buy a couple more. And so that's usually what I do. So these are 36-inch long Harbor Freight bar clamps. We were having a discussion yesterday with these. Someone was saying they had this pin here fail. You can see how many I have. I've never had one problem with any of these clamps. And I've been buying these over 5 years. So they're awesome. They're a great value. I think this 36-inch one is like $8 each. I mean, that's just unheard of. I've got all these 24-inch ones, which are probably the ones I use the most. I think these are about $6 each. Again, never had one problem or failure with these. They have worked flawlessly for me. And then I have a bunch of these 12-inch, which I also use these a lot. Same thing. They all have this rivet down here. Again, it's not a weld, it's a rivet. I mean, you could even replace that with a bolt if you had an issue with it. And then I really like these 6-inch ones. I have a bunch of these. These work great. You know, if you use you could just buy a bunch of 36-inch clamps and use them for every thickness you need. But when that 36-inch clamp is sticking out across the shop, it's really a pain. So if you have the luxury and room and budget to pick up shorter clamps, it's really nice. And then these are the ones I just posted about yesterday. These are the Menards Clamps. I just have a bunch of 24-inch. What I love about these is they have a really deep jaw. So I think it's, instead of, you know, these Harbor Freight ones and most of them on the market, this is about a 3-inch. So this is more like a 6-inch jaw. So you get more depth, which gives you more flexibility. The handles are really big and rubber. And they have a really big, thick thread with coarse thread, so you can generate a ton of torque with these. So I love these. I currently have 12 of those. I love this clamp. This is a Vesey clamp. This has an 8-inch jaw, so I will use these when I need a deeper reach. These also have the big threads like the Menards clamps, and they have really big, generous clamping areas. So if I need to generate a ton of torque, or I need that reach to go deeper, I have 2 of these. These are about $50 each. And again, I haven't really ever needed more than 2, so I've avoided buying more. And I really love these clamps. These are Jorgensen clamps, big generous grip. nice torquey threads, big high surface area clamping pads. If I'm looking for, like, if I just really need to hork something down, I use these. They also have more reach than the standard clamp, and you can see these, the clamping provision jaws are much thicker and more reinforced than the standard clamp. So you can put down a lot of pressure with the Harbor Freight clamps, but when you need more, this is the way to go. And then just for reference, this is the Jorgensen version of the Harbor Freight clamp. The Harbor Freight clamp in 12-inch like this is about, it's $5. These are about $15. These are nicer. There's no question about it. If I wanted to blow some cash, I would replace all my Harbor Freight stuff with these. If you only need 4 clamps, then just splurge on these. But when you want to have 30 or 40, you're literally talking about the difference between spending, a couple $100 and, possibly $500-600. So something you have to decide. But these also have nice rubber grips. I'm pretty much against anything with smooth wooden grips. So I have one of these. This has a smooth wooden grip, and I've put some stick sandpaper on it, which helps, but it tears up my hand. So I just really don't use these. I'll probably toss this or do something with it at some point. But the clamps that have the small, smooth wooden grips really suck. Now these are okay because they're big, so you can get a good purchase on this. And I don't have huge hands, but for you guys out there with moose paws, that's gonna be harder. These are some Bessies I picked up for really cheap. These have a wooden clamp, a wooden handle, and it's a little bigger. But again, if you were horking on these all day long on a big speaker project, it really wears your hands out. So, and I don't know, when you're young you can do that, but when you're in your mid 40s, you start feeling all that stuff. So, and then I've got some various C clamps up here. I've got one of these big deep jaw vice grips. And then I picked these up from Harbor Freight. These are actually a great value. These are deep jawed C clamps. I've got 8-inch and 12-inch. And I used those on the Helio CM when I was laminating those side panels. So they're a great price. They're good quality. So I picked up, about $80 worth of them, and they're really nice. So I recommend that. But yes, clamps. You can never have enough. So the collection just keeps growing. All right, and then let's see, it's time for a drink. I'm getting parched. Okay, let's talk about glues and stuff. So I set up this area here. Let's see. So I've got all my different tapes here. So I've got masking tape, duct tape, clear packing tape. All these are double-sided tapes. This is double-sided carpet tape, which works great for woodworking. This is like a double-sided masking tape made for woodworking. And then I've got some of this clear nano double-sided tape. So, these all work good for fixturing. And lots of masking tape. I use masking tape all the time. Now for glues, this just has some miscellaneous glues like some Elmer's glue wall and some Mod Podge. This is actually really good stuff. This is CMT tool cleaning solution. So this works great on router bits or saw blades if you want to get the wood schmegma off your blade or cutting bits. This is some veneer softener. These are all various biscuits and some dowels. And here I've got Type Bond 3 Ultimate, Type Bond 2. These are both Type Bond 2. This is Type Bond polyurethane glue. Got some WD-40, some silicone. This is my favorite silicone, this General Electric silicone adhesive. So don't get the silicone caulk, but the silicone adhesive. It pretty much sticks to anything. It's awesome. Various, this is goop, which works good for crossover parts. I've got some glue brushes and rollers and stuff here. I love these little silicone ones. It's actually really fun to get the glue out after it dries. So this is super glue or CA glue activator. If you want to pick some of this stuff up, the 2P-10 product works amazing. There are various activators on the market, but I use this all the time. Got some syringes that I use for gluing. These are various medium viscosity super glues or CA glues. These are high viscosity or heavy. And this is just kind of various types of glues. I've got some Scotch Weld, which is for plastic and rubber. I've got some Loctite adhesive, some Loctite all-purpose glue, some other kind of super glue. These are epoxies, epoxy. So that's where I keep and organize my glues. And again, you just can't have enough glue. It's good to have every option. So whenever I see a new glue that I don't have, I usually pick it up and buy it. And I'm always glad I did when I end up using it. I've got a toolbox here. I can just kind of blast through this real quick. Let's see. Just kind of open up. So I've actually have all these labeled. So in this drawer, I have pencils, knives, and scissors that I keep in here. Razor blades, things like that. So I've labeled that. Got some various screwdrivers and picks. These picks all come in handy for speaker building. Some smaller screwdrivers, Torx bits, things like that. So these are various kind of wrenches, pliers, sockets. I don't have a lot of sockets in here, but these open and close end wrenches, different Allen key tool kits, which again work good for speaker building and that kind of stuff. And I just generally buy a couple, so I always have plenty when I'm looking for them. These are some crimping tool, vice grips, which I use a lot, especially when I'm doweling. This is my measuring drawer. I love these 12-inch digital calipers, so I can actually measure the actual dimensions of a driver instead of having to guess or use a tape measure or something like that. Various tri-squares that I use a lot. I really like this one. It's a wood graphic product. Got a standard 6-inch digital caliper, which I'm constantly using. I really like these sliding squares. I use these all the time. Two different sizes. This is cool. This is a Stanley compass. So you can loosen this. You can draw circles of whatever size you want. I also have this thing, which is called Rotape. So it's an actual tape measure. And it goes all the way out to, geez, I forgot how far out it goes. 5 feet. You can make a 10-foot diameter circle with this. So there's a little piece of graphite in the end here and a little pointer that creates your origin of your circle. So this comes in handy when I'm doing bigger subwoofer builds. This will go out to 18, 20 inches. And then I have a more standard style compass that I use all the time for 6 to 8 inch holes or smaller, roughly. These are a cool tool. So you can take a pencil. Once you stick it in there, you can see the graphite sticking out. So if you have a board, you want to draw down the center of it, you just simply run it along the edge. So, and then it also has these pre-designated cutouts. So you can, these are cheap, and you can pick up stuff like that. This digital angle gauge is awesome. So as it rotates, the angles change. So I use this mostly for setting up the table saw. I really don't like to rely on the gauge on the table saw. It's not very accurate. And then these punches are awesome. I use these all the time for center hole punch. They're spring loaded. So and then I just have different rulers. I have this digital angle finder, which I use all the time as well. I have some of these blocks that I've made that are perfectly 90 degrees. And so I'll use these for as clamping fixtures. I have several different ones. They're easy to make too. This is a nice little tool. So if you want to draw a line x distance from the edge, you just put the pencil in there and you can make a line. So anyways, for measurements and stuff like that. And this drawer, this is actually from Harbor Freight, one of their great quality tools. It actually works great. It's a dead blow hammer. I really like this Japanese style pull saw. This one's by Shark Saw, but this makes quick work of something if you want to make a cut. I have a smaller Dewalt one, which I use quite often as well. I really like this scraper. So this works, honestly, very similar to a plane. Works good for like scraping glue off and stuff. This one's by BAHCO, the Baco 650. Real good quality tool, and you can buy these replaceable jaws or sharpen them. Cabinet scraper, great tool to have. I use this all the time. A whole selection of hand chisels that I use. This is my trusty hammer that I've had for about 20 years. I love these Estwing hammers. This 2-inch sanding drum I use all the time in speaker building. Works great after you make a cutout. You just clean up the edge with that. I use these little scrapers a lot. They're mostly used by painters, but I sharpen them on my sander. And so they work great for scraping and cleaning. I've got this little block plane that I use every once in a while. It works well. I'd like to get more bigger hand planes, but it's not something I have right now. And I've got some various crowbars and things like that in here. This little hacksaw that I use every once in a while. Stapler, again. And then I've got some these printer strips for my label printer. I keep those in here as well. So, but this toolbox just helps me stay organized for all these tools so they're not cluttering up all over the shop. I think I picked that up at Home Depot. Another gift card to purchase. So, all right. Well, I think you guys are probably, if you're still watching, you're probably sick of listening. These are all the little jigs and test things I make. So this is for the Satori W024. I write down all the dimensions that the setup requires for the circle jig. I keep all those unless I think I'll never need them again, and I get rid of them. This is some Ipe veneer I picked up. Backup supply of Type-On glues up there. Some various veneers and things. This I use all the time. You've probably seen this in my projects. This is a piece of foam from Home Depot, foamular. But I use this to protect my workbenches from cutting into there. So that's what I recommend doing. This is just an area where I keep cutoffs. I go through this about twice a year and throw away things I don't need. But I can use pieces like this for cutting boards. These little, I have some more down here of plywood cutoffs and hardwood cutoffs. And so I'll use those for bracing or when I need little pieces of anything. And then some more tools. This is a really nice, I love this Bosch 10-inch circular saw. If you're looking at a circular saw, that's a really nice one. And I use a lot of organizer bins like this. So this is for different thread certs I use. You've probably seen me use those on different feet I've done. So I've got different sizes. These are 5mm, 3/8. This is the drill bit that I use with a 8mm, 1/2-inch 13, yada yada. This is a little brad nailer, air powered. More screws and things. These are silver stainless steel screws. This is a socket set I have in case I need it. Oh, this is another Makita tool I have. This is a 23 gauge brad nailer. Works awesome. This is great for when you're gluing and assembling. It takes these 23 gauge brads. So for quick assembly when you're gluing, no cord, just bop, bop, bop. And they're 23 gauge, so they're really thin, but they do the job to hold things for 5 or 10 minutes until the glue sets up. So anyways, yeah, I've got, let's see, one last thing. These are just various boards and what I have, some sheet of MDF, some of that thick particle board for workbenches. And then back here, I store bigger sheets of plywood. So we've got 18 mil Baltic birch, 12 mil Baltic birch, got some 1-inch MDF, another sheet of 3/4 inch. I don't use a lot of MDF. And just other kinds of plywood. So this space that I created back here works awesome. I can stick full sheets back there. And then when I want to get a sheet out, I just open the garage door. I go grab it, bring it into the shop, bring it over to my panel saw, and I cut it down. So, all right, thanks guys for listening. It's an hour and a half. I knew this wasn't going to be quick, but hopefully this is helpful. Ask questions below. You know, I'd say ask them publicly if you don't mind, so that others can benefit from it. If you have any other comments, let me know. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate you guys being in the pad. Thanks for your support, your kind words. Your guys' friendship and camaraderie means a lot to me, and especially during this time of loss, losing Jeff. It's been great to see how much you guys love and appreciate him, and it's been great to receive your support as well. So, love you guys. Thanks again for listening. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.